गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रजजनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रजजनरंजन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jaya Radha Madhav, Jaya Radha Madhav, Radha Madhav, Jaya Radha Madhav. Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita. Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Prahlad Narsingha, Jaya Prahlad Narsingha, Prahlad Narsingha, Jaya Prahlad Narsingha. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Pariraj Acharya Ashtatarastata His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Madhav Ashtasaki Ki Shri Shri Panchatattva Ki Shri Shri Prahlad Narsingha Dev Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 18, verses 39, 40 and 41. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashta Praishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So only the 41st verse is on the board, so I will read text 39 and 40, and maybe I'll read in word to word form so that you can repeat after me. Sava Aṅgiraso brahman śrutvā suta-vilāpanam unmīlya śanakair netre dṛṣṭvā cāṁse mṛtoragam. I'll read the translation. O brahmanas, the rīṣi who was born in the family of Aṅgirā Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck. Text 40. Please repeat after me. Visṛjya tam cha papraccha vatsa kasmād rodiṣi kenava te pakṛtam iti uktaḥ sa nyavedayat. Translation. He threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened. purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The father did not take the dead snake on his neck very seriously. He simply threw it away. Actually, there was nothing seriously wrong in Maharaj Parikshit's act. But the foolish son took it very seriously, and being influenced by Kali, he cursed the king and thus ended a chapter of happy history. Text 41. Nishamya saptam atad arham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyanandat aho batam ho mahad adyate kritam alpiyasi droha urur damo dritaha nishamya shaptam atad arham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyanandat aho batam ho mahad adyate kritam alpiyasi droha urur damo dritaha. Prabhuji. Nishamya shaptam atad arham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyananda aho batam mahad adyate nitam alpiyasi droha urur damo dritaha. Nishamya saptam ahatad arham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyanandat aho batam ho mahad adyate kritam alpiyasi droha urur damo dritaha. Mataji. Nishamya saptam atad arham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyanandat aho batam ho mahad adyate kritam alpiyasi droha urur damo dritaha. Nishamya shaptam atad arham narendram sa brahmano natmajam abhyanandat aho batam ho mahad adyate kritam alpiyasi droha urur damo dritaha. Word to word translation. Please repeat after me. Nishamya, after hearing. Shaptam, curse. Atat arham, never to be condemned. Nara indram, unto the king, best of humankind. Saha, that. Brahmanaha, Brahman rīṣi, na, not. Atmajam, his own son. Abhyanandat, congratulated. Aho, alas. Bata, distressing. Amha, since. Mahat, great. Adya, today. Te, yourself. kritam performed, alpiyasi insignificant, drohe offense, uruh very great, damaha punishment, dritaha awarded. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Please repeat after me the translation. The father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best among all human beings. The rīṣi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary began to repent, saying, Alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He has awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense. Purport: the king is the best of all human beings. He is the representative of God, and he is never to be condemned for any of his actions. In other words, the king can do no wrong. The king may order hanging of a culprit son of a brahmana, but he does not become sinful for killing a brahmana. Even if there is not something wrong with the king, he is never to be condemned. A medical practitioner may kill a patient by mistaken treatment, but such a killer is never condemned to death. So what to speak of a good and pious king like Maharaj Parikshit? In the Vedic way of life, the king is trained to become a rajasi or a great saint. Although he is ruling as king, it is the king only by whose good government the citizens can live peacefully and without any fear. The rajasi would manage the kingdom so nicely and piously that their subjects would respect them as if they were the Lord. That is the instruction of the Vedas. The king is called Narendra and the best among the human beings. How then could a king like Maharaj Parikshit be condemned by an inexperienced, puffed up son of a brahmana, even though he had attained the power of a qualified brahmana? Since Shamika Rishi was an experienced good brahmana, he did not approve of the actions of his condemned son. He began to lament for all that his son had done. The king was beyond the jurisdiction of curses as a general rule. And what to speak of a good king like Maharaj Parikshit? The offense of the king was most insignificant, and his being condemned to death was certainly a great sin for Shringi. Therefore, Rishi Shamika regretted the whole incident. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur-unmīlitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरि यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणे। परमानन्दं माधवं श्रीचैतन्यमीश्वरं साक्षात् हरित्रेण समस्तशास्त्रे युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव साध्वी किन्तु प्रभुर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्। यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादात् यस्य प्रसादन्न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्स्तुवं तस्य यस्य त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले प्रभुपादानुगामि श्रीसुभागस्वामिने सदा दैन्यशीली सुभाग्याय सर्वजीवकृपाब्दे गुरुशिक्षा सदाचार पालकाय नमोऽस्तुते। हरे कृष्ण। So text 39. Suta Goswami is addressing that Rishi, that the Shaumik Rishi was born in the family of Aṅgirā Rishi. So we know from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, fourth chapter, where it's describing about how that Vyasadeva has divided the Vedas into four. And here, there it's explaining that the Aṅgirā Rishi was given the charge of Atharva Veda. And since he was very devotedly engaged in following the Atharva Veda, so he was given that charge. And so there we find the description of Aṅgirā Rishi, Aṅgirā Muni. So Shaumik Rishi is not an ordinary saint. He's coming from in that greatly saintly lineage from Aṅgirā Rishi. So we can understand how he was not an ordinary person. He was very powerful saint. But his son Shringi being puffed up, Prabhupada mentioned this word, being puffed up, and being that having that pride, that he was having that power, he cursed the king in haste. Prabhupada mentions that initially he didn't thought about the consequences. He didn't thought that what will happen if he is going to curse such a great saintly king. Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that he was a Raja Rishi. We understand from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that evam parampara praptam imam rajasayo vidu. So this this science of God was coming in the disciplic succession through the saintly kings. So the kings who previously were all saints mostly. We have in the history about Ambarish Maharaj, about Janak Maharaj, about Dhruva Maharaj, about Prahlad Maharaj. All these kings were saintly. So the knowledge was coming through the saintly rishis. And without understanding the consequences the world has to face by cursing such a great king, this Prabhupada mentions that this foolish son of Shaumik Rishi cursed King Parikshit. And in the previous verse, Prabhupada mentioning in the purport, the boy was not very happy because he committed a great mistake. So he first, in haste, he cursed the great king, and later he started repenting. But it was too late. He started repenting, he was crying, and he wanted that, that he wanted to be relieved from the burden in his heart, that he has cursed such a great king. And Prabhupada also explained in the further verses that what is the consequence of, after Maharaj Parikshit would leave this world. Till Parikshit, it was ruled by the monarchical, system. And then once it is destroyed, then there will be the people will, there will be democratic system where so many people will try to rule the country, and mostly they will not be qualified people because they are not well trained. The kings, Prabhupada mentioned, the kings previously, they used to get trained very nicely from their very childhood about religious principles, about how to take care of their citizens, about the economic development, about the kingly spirit. So they were all well trained in all these matters to rule the country. Not that just by by voting you make somebody a prime minister or ministers, the MPs. No, Prabhupada condemns this system. He says democracy, because the sole motive of this democratic government is just to plunder the people, to take over the system, and then to plunder, to make money. So we have been seeing this, that so many countries, their economic status, their religion, whatever they were following, were all lost. Even that in India, where people were so religious, now they are forced to follow the Western culture, to follow the modern civilization. They are forgetting their own Vedic civilization. Prabhupada again and again mentioning in his purports that we should follow the Vedic civilization. People think, no, what is this Vedic civilization? No. So Vedic civilization teaches us how to behave, ethical ways, moral ways. Here, I think in one of the purports, Prabhupada mentioned, he was not ethical, the son of Rishi. So the sage envisioned that in future this, the monarchical system will be lost, and then the people in general will, then there will be this democratic government, they will rule the country, and people will slowly forget to following the religious principles. And the animals and the women will be lost. So he was envisioning that all this is going to happen, and he was repenting. It's very important thing, the word repenting. So he was repenting for the foolish act done by his son. So in general, devotees, when they do by mistake something wrong, they start repenting. And when they start repenting, it is said that the Lord, seeing the repentance, He gives His mercy so that they can overcome their sin or offenses. So it's very important. It's that immediately Shamika Rishi, when he heard, he immediately felt that he started repenting for the act of his son. Can somebody fix this? Haribo. Hare Krishna. Okay. So what he did, immediately when he opened his eyes, he saw the dead snake around his neck. And he threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying. So here we can also see that when Shamik Rishi, when he opened his eyes, he did not exhibited that anger. He didn't ask like, oh, who has put this snake on me? Who dared to do it? Where is he? Who is he? And I will curse him. I will take an action against him. No. Rather, in Purport Prabhupada say, the father did not take the dead snake on his neck very seriously. Why? Because Shamik Rishi was a great devotee. Said in Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, that Jitatma Prashantaya Paramatma Samahita Sitoshna Sukha Dukha Tatha Manapamanayo. So he said that a saintly person has controlled over his mind. In that way he also controlled, he has taken his charge of the super soul. So in Sitoshna, when there is a heat and when there is a Sita is cold and when there is heat, and when there is Sukha, happiness, and Dukkha, distress, and Manapamana, in honor and in dishonor, he is not disturbed. You can see that Shitoshna, these are related to body. It's around bodily platform. And then Sukha, Dukkha, they are on mental platform. And then Manapamana is on egoistic platform. But here you can see that sage was above all these stages, above all these three stages, that he was not disturbed by all this. So immediately what he did, very simply, he thought it was a very simple act, whoever has did it, he just removed the dead snake, he put it aside. But when he understood that this was done by Maharaj Parikshit and his son has cursed him, the greatest punishment, that he would be killed, he started lamenting and repenting for his son's act, whatever act he did. So, and his son was crying because he was repenting, also repenting, but it was too late. So he was crying. So Shamik Rishi asked him, like generally when children they cry, we start when the father mother they approach father mother, they start asking them that why are you crying? What has happened? Are you hungry, thirsty, or somebody has harmed you? Somebody has said something to you. So Shamik Rishi in general, he's asking the same thing. He's asking what has happened. Why are you crying? Whether anyone has done him harm. So after this, the son started explaining the whole story. He explained that how he was playing with his boyfriends, and that King Parikshit, when he was he was wandering, he felt hunger and thirst, and then he approached the hermitage of Shamik Rishi, and then he approached him, but he was in samadhi, he was in trance, so he could not answer a reply to Parikshit's queries. And seeing that, Maharaj Parikshit put the dead snake around his shoulder, and that hearing this immediately, without actually he should have the good thing would have been that he should approach his father and understand what has exactly happened. Then he started asking him in details what has happened, and based on that, and after he should have heard what we can see in the following verses, but the Shamik Rishi is speaking very in details about Maharaj Parikshit, how he is a great king, he is a Narendra. So he should have heard about him before punishing, but instead of going to his father, approaching him, understanding what has actually happened, he cursed him. So in general also we see that when we are in dealing, when we are in management, when we are like authorized people to judge, so we should be very careful when dealing with such situation. We should rather not just hear from one party and make our judgment. Rather we should hear from both the parties, understand what will be the consequences, cursing such a great king, the consequences was the Kali had, taken over. So we should understand the consequences, what will happen, and accordingly one should punish. But the Shringi did not, thought, he was not thoughtful. Prabhupada says he was immature, he was foolish. So in that immaturity, he started, he cursed the king, and then later he started repenting. So here Prabhupada also mentioning that there was nothing wrong, seriously wrong in Maharaj Parikshit act. This also confirms in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto in 33 chapter in the description of Rasa Leela. So there it's mentioned that how if a great personality, the sloka I forgot, jijiyasam sa doshaya, some part of the sloka. So there it's mentioned, even a great personalities who are ruling the whole world, even if they do, if they transgress the religious principles, they should not be blamed. They should not be considered like, they should not be treated badly. So we should understand that Maharaj Parikshit, he was ruling the whole world. He was a great king. He was coming in the dynasty of Kurus. His grandfather, the Pandavas were his grandfathers. Yudhishthira Maharaj, he ruled the whole world. Such a great king. Ajatashatru, he didn't have any enemies. Generally kings have so many enemies. But Yudhishthira was such a great king, he didn't have even one enemy. So he was coming from in such a lineage, such a dynasty, and without considering all this point, he punished him. So in the Bhagavatam it says that we should not judge somebody great personality who are ruling this world simply by their immediate some actions which you see. So in that way, Prabhupada is mentioning that Maharaj Parikshit did not do anything wrong. Actually, it was the destiny. It was the Krishna's will actually which made Parikshit to do this, act like this. It also then in the next verses, it's mentioned that why this child brahmana was also became part of this act. Because he was a child, he acted foolishly. And his father prayed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because here his father knew that Maharaj Parikshit was a great king, saint. He will not counteract, he will not curse him back. At least he would have cursed him back, then that that some action was taken by Parikshit, so that was okay. But he know that the Rishi knew that he will not curse him back because he is a great sage. So this is also one of the lessons for us that we should learn that when sometime there is a dispute among devotees, that we should not start blaming devotees, we should not start cursing devotees. So here Maharaj Parikshit did not curse. He could have. He was a great king, and we can see in the instances in the history that the great saintly kings, the Vaishnavas, are above brahmanas and kshatriyas, above this varnashram. We can see from the pastimes of Durvasa Rishi and Ambarish Maharaj. Durvasa Rishi, a great yogi. He has achieved all these siddhis. He was so powerful that he could go to any planets, even to Vaikuntha Loka. He cursed. He wanted to kill a Vaishnava, great Vaishnava, Ambarish Maharaj. And what happened? Ambarish Maharaj was a great Vaishnava. Immediately Lord sent his Sudarshan to kill Durvasa Muni. So powerful, because the devotees are protected by the Lord, who is Yogeshwara, who is the Ishvara of all the yogis, who is the Supreme Lord. So he sent his Sudarshan, and Durvasa went on different planets. He also went to Vaikuntha. He asked the Lord to save him from the Sudarshan. But the Lord said, I cannot. Unless my devotee forgives, I cannot save you. So ultimately, Durvasa Rishi had to come to Ambarish Maharaj and ask for forgiveness. So what Ambarish Maharaj did? A very little thing. He just wanted to break his fast. He didn't do something very big. But Durvasa Rishi wanted to kill him. You see? So this also shows that sometimes when we have too much power, we try to show it. We are very restless when we have too much power. We want to show to others. There is also one very good example of when there was one yogi who did a lot of tapasya, and after doing the tapasya, he got a lot of power. So he saw after doing tapasya, so when he was approaching the village, he saw one crow. The crow did poop on him. So he saw immediately, with anger, he saw the crow, and the crow was burned into ashes. Then he approached the village. There he went to one householder, and he started begging alms. And then the wife of she was a chaste woman. Prabhupada mentioned she was a chaste woman. So she was serving her husband, and he he started begging for alms, and she was telling, "Please wait, I will come." Again and again she was saying, "Please wait, I am coming. I am serving my husband. So after some time I will come." So, but he was very restless because he has the power. So he wanted to show. Then the woman came out. She said, "Don't think I am that crow, and you can burn me to ashes." Prabhupada mentioned those were chaste women. They are also very powerful. Example of Gandhari, Draupadi, Kunti, very powerful women. Kunti Maharani, a great Vaishnavi. Her prayers, wonderful prayers, she glorified the Lord. Not an ordinary person, nobody can do. So here Prabhupada, by this story, he is explaining that when we have this power, sometimes we tend to show it. So Durvasa Muni tried, but he failed. Ultimately, he regretted his actions and he repented. Similarly, how this Shringi repented, but it was too late. He already cursed the king, and king is about to die in 7 days. And again, here Maharaj Parikshit is teaching us. At least Maharaj Parikshit had 7 days. He knew that in 7 days he is going to die, but we don't know when we are going to die. There's again one more instance I heard in the kingdom of Yudhishthir Maharaj. One person he approached. He wanted to meet King Yudhishthir. So the doorkeeper approached the king, and he said, "King, somebody has come, he wants to meet you." The king said, Yudhishthir Maharaj was busy. He said, "Not today, tell him to come tomorrow." So Bhim heard this. So what he did, he went into the village, in the town, and then he started beating the drums and calling everybody. Previously there was no WhatsApp, social media. So he went to the town and he started beating the drums, and he called all the people, all the residents. He said, "I have a very nice good news." So what is that? My big brother, the king, has conquered the death for 1 day. How is that? Because he has told one of the person who came to meet him that I am going to meet you tomorrow. So he is assured that he is going to be alive till tomorrow. So here, Parikshit Maharaj, at least he knew that within 7 days, after 7 days he is going to be killed. So he started preparing for that. But for us, we don't know when we are going to die. Somebody from this audience, if you can tell that when you are going to die, you can raise your hand. No? So he didn't, we don't know when we are going to die. So better, start engaging in Krishna consciousness more seriously, in the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit. He didn't eat, drink for 7 days. Of course, I'm not saying that we should do that, follow that. But at least, cut down our eating, sleeping, and try to engage more and more in Krishna's service. Do not offend devotees. Do not criticize devotees until you are an authority. Unless you are given that responsibility to judge others. We should not judge others. This way we will be doing more offenses. This way, in Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Charitamrita it's mentioned, it's like madhati. So the mad elephant will go in the forest, the bhakti lata which is growing in our heart, he will just go, all these offenses will destroy all the bhakti lata. So what will happen? No bhakti. Slowly, doing all these offenses, finding faults with other devotees, slowly we see our taste for devotional service is going down. And then slowly we see after some time, we are no more in the moment. That's why it's a test. Maya is testing us at every moment. How strong we are in our Krishna consciousness, how serious we are to practice Krishna consciousness. If we are not serious, just like a strong wind comes, and different trees and plants, they are uprooted based on the strength they have. So if you are not serious in our Krishna consciousness, this Maya will overpower us. Then we will not be in a position to save ourselves. That's why we see long Prabhupada, when he established this movement, there were thousands of followers and disciples. And then now down 50 years later, 10% or less of, So the Maya is testing. That's why many times we don't see senior people, those who are long time, we don't see slowly many people disappear. The test is there. That's why, we should be simple at heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that's why he used to like those who are very simple at heart. Simplicity is Vaishnavism, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to tell. So we have to be very, very careful. So it was desire, it was Krishna's will. This whole incident took place. Parikshit was cursed. Also, it was the time for Parikshit to go back to Godhead. It was the time for the Srimad Bhagavatam to appear. The shloka is mentioned that Krishna swadhamo pagate dharma jana dibhisaha kalo nashta disham esha puranarko dunodita. So when Krishna disappeared, Srimad Bhagavatam appeared for the conditioned soul to take benefit of it and to go back to Godhead. So here Prabhupada also giving it two examples, analogies. One is of a king, that he may order hanging of a culprit son of a brahmana. Even the culprit may be the son of a brahmana, but that will not affect the king. He will not incur any sinful reactions. And even if a medical practitioner may kill a patient by mistaken treatment. So we know that when generally we are taken to the ICU for surgeries, so the hospital authorities, they will ask us to sign the document. Unless we sign, they will not do the operation. And it says that you are responsible, not the hospital, not the doctor. Anything may happen. And it's even by mistake, if the person dies, the doctor is not held responsible. That's what Prabhupada is saying. So what to speak of good and pious king like Maharaj Parikshit, who didn't do any sinful activities in his whole life. He only allowed, being merciful, allowed the Kali to enter 4 things plus 1, the pride. That pride was a cause for the Brahmana's son to curse King Parikshit. So in this way, King Shamik Rishi is regretting that you have cursed such a wonderful king. Now the whole world will be disturbed by in the future by Democrats and others, and that we have seen practically that this whole different countries, some are following democratic system, some are following the capitalist, some are following the China and Russia communism. So, and basically they are teaching, they are making us go away, like forget Krishna, forget the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada actually said real, how we say in India, that they don't follow any religion. The word which is used is called secularism. Prabhupada said the real secularism is that for the government, for the king to see that everybody, no matter whatever religion they are practicing, they should be practicing nicely. That's the duty of the king or the government. That is real secularism, not that no religion. And people becoming all too much materialistic, too much puffed up, too much into sense gratification. They're forgetting their real business. They're forgetting that the purpose of this rare human form of life. So that is real secularism. When I heard this from Srila Prabhupada, I was very happy, because I heard so much of this word secularism. I didn't know the exact meaning, but when Prabhupada said, I was very clear. I was very happy. If I find some so-called secularist, I can tell them what is real secularism means. And fortunately now, those who are ruling, so they are religious. They are also like kings used to consult the brahmanas. So as I also heard the current central the government has some website where they ask for feedbacks from citizens. They ask some proposal if they have. So that is required. Unless the king is like Raja Rishi, unless the king is practicing Krishna consciousness, how can he make his citizen follow? People will just become like rogues and thieves. Prabhupada is saying in this chapter that people will just become rogues and thieves, because there is no religion, there is no person who is going to oversee that people are following, because there is no strong king. There the government is cheating. They see, you cheating, I am cheating, okay, you do, I do. That's why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, this world is full of cheaters and being cheated. Full of cheaters and being cheated. But we are very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada made this society so that we are not cheated like outsiders. So we should be very happy, we should be very grateful to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja is coming, so we can offer our praise, gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, pray our homages to Srila Prabhupada, that for thanking him for giving us such a wonderful society which can help us build this character. The character is very important. This Shamik Rishi, you see, he is a wonderful person. You can see all the qualities of a brahman, of a sadhu in him. That's why he immediately repented. He didn't retaliate. In Bhagavad Gita we say, Bhagavad Gita, the qualities are mentioned. Samo, damo, tapo, shaucham, kyantim, arjamam, evacha, jnana, vijnanam, astikyam, brahma, karma, sambhajam. Even Aṅgirā Muni is saying the qualities of a sadhu. Titiksha, karunika, kshridham, sarvadehinam, ajata shatru, shanto, sadhavo, sadhu bhushanam. The devotees are decorated with all these wonderful qualities. So one should appreciate, and one should also pray that in our own lives we can develop all these wonderful qualities of a devotees, and pray that everyone together we can go back to home, back to Godhead. Thank you very much. I think there's 5 minutes left, so mostly I'll welcome the comments and maybe some questions. I'll try to see if I can answer them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Pranam.
Pranam.
Prabhu, one should avoid quarreling with the devotees.
One should avoid
Quarrelings with the devotees.
quarrelings.
Devotees. Otherwise, it seems to be a great offense.
Otherwise,
It seems to be a great offense.
quarreling with devotees.
Quarreling with the devotees. In case when the devotees behave improper against the regulations, is it not significant to correct him for his individual betterment?
See, generally, if you are an authority, if you are a guru, you should correct him. Or if the person is ready to hear you, accept you, then you should correct it. If not, if you try to correct somebody who is not hearing you, then it's no use. Right? That's why spiritual master is there. When there is a problem, you approach spiritual master and he will correct us. So instead of like in this chapter, that Shringi should have approached his father, who is like a guru, and said, this is the problem, what is the solution? But rather he cursed. So unless your authority, you are related to somebody, or somebody is obedient to you, it's very difficult for them to hear you. Better to avoid. Right?
Immediately, spiritual master may not be available now, Prabhu, on the spot.
But he should also be ready to accept you, right? If he is quarreling with you, then why he will accept you? Right? So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Who is that? Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a really nice class. You made very important points in the lecture. One of the points I wanted to ask you about is the question of accountability that comes with leadership. When one is a leader, one is in a position of authority and responsibility. With that comes accountability. Could you comment a little bit about accountability?
See, when you said leader, unless a leader is accountable, whatever he is doing, then people, the followers will not accept him. You say he is a person, he says so many things, but he himself doesn't follow. So he's what kind of leader he is. And by accountability, the leader themselves, it's also for them that they know there are certain rules and regulations, especially in the society, where certain things, certain principles are there which we need to follow. So he should abide by them. It's not that he's not accountable and he does whatever whimsically he wants to do, and then later on, if he's not following his authorities or the principles, the rules and regulations are led in by the authority, the spiritual master or the society, then ultimately he will be in melancholy. He will be disturbed. He will be later on judged by others. He will do wrong things. So accountability is very important for leaders. At least this is what I can tell right now. Yes, bro.
I was reading from the What's the Difficulty book by Shrutakirti Prabhu. He was mentioning how when a devotee is practicing 4 regulative principles and 16 rounds every day, attending Mangalarti, then after 10 or 12 years, everything he speaks is perfect, will become perfect, he was saying. So a leader becomes like that. He follows and then he tells.
The leader, you said?
A leader,
yes. Prabhupada also mentioned.
I think his program would be like this, like to follow like this, and then it's actually a tip from Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhupada mentioned that if somebody is very strictly following the regulative principles, chanting, doing his sadhana very nice, he will get some power. Whatever he says, Satya Sankalpa, like that, so, but somebody has to really very strictly has to follow. It's very difficult, at least in my case, very difficult. So it's very difficult to come every day for Mangalarti, very difficult to chant 16 rounds without offenses, very difficult to not gossip, do prajalpa, very difficult to not do to strictly only practice Krishna consciousness, not do anything else like social media. Now so many ways mind is get distracted. Very difficult to just stick to prasadam when so many alluring things are there outside, vendors are selling. very difficult to always associate with devotees. Very difficult when you associate to not to find faults with devotees. It's very difficult. But Prabhupada made such a society, ISKCON. If you are inside, if you are in the, if you are strictly following whatever our previous acharyas has taught us, whatever Srila Prabhupada explained us, it's also not difficult. But that requires expert guidance. One should be under a bona fide spiritual
I was told in this regard that when you are facing that feeling of facing obstacles or offenses on the path, then you keep doing whatever you are doing and they will help you. Like we chant, we attend Mangalarati, so they will help.
Yes, sadhana of course.
That is just a tip. I didn't want...
sadhana of course will help us to advance in Krishna consciousness. There are two things. Either you advance, either you retire. You cannot be on a same level all the time. A devotee one should think that either he is advancing in Krishna consciousness by proper executing the devotional service, either he is retiring. You cannot think that I am chanting everything is okay, is going on. No. Either you are advancing, either you are retiring. You cannot be on the same level all the time.
Yes. So those are like the details.
Okay.
But to move forward with confidence and everything, if we keep doing chanting, attending Mangalarti, following 4 regulative principles, then we can face challenges. I think that's what the tip suggests.
Krishna will give power to face challenges. Like Ambarish Maharaj, he was ready. He didn't run away. When the demon came, he didn't run away. He was there. He was ready to accept whatever he thinks, whatever happens is according to the will of the Lord. He is fully dependent, surrendered at the lotus feet of the Lord. So I think we will finish here. It's already more than 9.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Pramanande. Hari Hari Bol.